A Maryland advocacy group challenges the White House. Good evening. This is CTV News. I'm Patricia Vallone. CASA, the largest Latino and immigrant-based organization in the Mid-Atlantic, has filed a lawsuit to block a new Trump administration rule that they say unfairly discriminates against lower-income immigrants. CASA's motion for a preliminary injunction aims to stop the public charge rule from taking effect next month. The rule gives immigration officials discretion to deny green cards to non-citizens who they determine are likely to be dependent on government services in the future. The lawsuit is filed on behalf of 2 immigrants who came to the U.S. as young children.
So it is very scary to think that there are a lot of folks out there that are thinking twice, thinking 3 times, sometimes 4 times, as to whether they should apply for something that they're 100% eligible to receive. They're completely qualified to receive some of these public benefits, and yet the consequences of applying is something that they weigh very heavily.
It's important because I'm a DACA beneficiary, and I'm also a college student. I want to become a full-time student, but I can't because I can't afford it. I have to work. If I want to take a student loan, I have to think about it. One, because I don't benefit, but also in the future, like that is going to affect me when I want to fix my legal status.
The plaintiffs are being represented by attorneys at Georgetown Law's Institute for Constitutional Advocacy Protection, and it's the first lawsuit in the nation filed against the Trump administration's public charge rule using named plaintiffs. In international news, suspected militant attacks on a major Saudi Arabian oil facility over the weekend have heightened tensions in the Middle East. The strike on one of the world's leading oil exporters threatens global supplies and could impact gas prices here at home. CTV spoke with AAA Mid-Atlantic spokesperson John Townsend about the issue.
There is a possibility that prices could go up. Crude oil prices globally are up 20% overnight because of the reaction to this. And there's a distinct possibility that the price of gas could increase anywhere from 15 cents a gallon to 25 cents a gallon, but we don't know yet. The Trump administration is talking about releasing product from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and that will help offset the impact to American consumers.
Meantime, U.S. officials have blamed the attack on Iran. Well, what are the tools and incentives available for economic development in the county? That was the topic of discussion during a Prince George's Council retreat today. It was also a chance for County Executive Angela Alsobrooks to share her vision for the region.
Today was an opportunity for the county executive to present kind of her economic development vision to the county council so we can be on the same page going forward for Prince George's County. She did focus on kind of 5 areas that she was concerned about, so this is the opportunity for us to hear that directly. And then to hear from her staff and some of the agencies about the work that they're doing every single day in order to advance Prince George's County. So I think it was a good conversation for today, a good factual basis for us to move forward, working on some of the things that we've already started, whether that's the zoning rewrite, it's a comprehensive housing strategy that we just recently adopted, because obviously economic development also talks about housing, transportation, our workforce, and so those are the conversations that this retreat today was trying to get started.
And today's retreat was held at Newton White Mansion in Mitchellville. Well, it was 6 years ago today when a gunman entered a secure building at the Navy Yard in D.C. and opened fire. As we remember that day, Byron Scott has a report tonight with the family of one of the victims.
It was Monday, September 16, 2013, just after 8 o'clock in the morning. 34-year-old Navy contractor Aaron Alexis, armed with a Remington pump-action shotgun, gains entry to Building 197 at the Navy Yard in the District of Columbia. Over the next roughly hour and 20 minutes, 12 people would be gunned down. 1 was a resident of D.C., 5 lived in Virginia, 6 of the victims lived in Maryland.
This was the darkest days in our life,
including Sylvia Frazier.
She was not supposed to be there that day. She was actually sitting in for a meeting for someone who had called her on that prior day and asked because they were not able to make the meeting.
Dr. Wendy Edmonds is her sister.
I woke up that morning and it was just a normal day. And what happened is that my phone started buzzing. And I checked it and it was calls from the family. And my sister said, "Do you have the news on?" "No." And she said, "There's been a shooting at the Washington Navy Yard."
Because cell phones were banned from Building 197, the victims were unable to contact the outside world. Time dragged on.
I hadn't heard from my sister, and I had sent a text message to her saying, "Are you okay?" We were calling, and no response. And then they said there were deaths. And my brother said, "I don't like the sound of that."
Well, I can see that moment, and it's being very clear.
Hours later, Edmund's brother arrived at their parents' house in Glenarden, where most of the family had gathered.
He actually gave us the news and said that Sylvia was injured. She did not survive her gunshot wounds, and Sylvia's home with the Lord now. And the whole house exploded. It just exploded. I mean, I watched my father's body just go into contortions in total disbelief, and my mother just rocked. She never cried. She just kept rocking and rocking and rocking. "Are you sure? Did you see the body? Are you sure? Are you sure?"
53-year-old Sylvia Frazier was a civilian employee at the Navy Yard. She had been there 30 years.
She loved to tell jokes. Funny or not, she would tell the jokes.
Edmund says it was important for her to forgive the gunman right away.
I know that to get to the point that I needed to be, to do the work that it would take to be with my family and help my family, I had to start with forgiveness. And it was not for him, it was for me.
But with each mass shooting, the pain and trauma rushes back. Just 3 days after we conducted this interview on August 28th, there was another mass shooting in West Texas. At least 8 were gunned down.
It's painful. It is painful. And when I say that I cry, I cry. I cry because I know the pain of the sudden shock of your loved one never coming home again.
To be sure, not a day goes by that the family doesn't think about Sylvia, her strength, her wit, her personality.
And the one that comes to mind right now is a woman who she worked with that was homeless. And she and her son were living in her car. And every day, Sylvia would make sure that they had breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And so, for this tight-knit family, they press forward and continue to appeal to our better angels.
We must stand in the gap for those who have gone on before us and for those who are here now, because unfortunately, we're all subject to mass shootings.
Byron Scott, CTV News.
In the years since that mass shooting, Dr. Edmonds and her brother have been advocating for gun control measures. We'll have more on that later.